Hi, I'm Adrian Keene. I'm Associate Vice President, Global Biosafety and Validation and EMEA Consulting Services at NAMSA. I've been with NAMSA just over 5 years. Prior to NAMSA, I was head of the UK notified body SGS and spent around 10 years in the notified body sector. So in that time, I was on notified body committees, involved with much of the discussion with the development of the MDR. The extension to the EU MDR has been confirmed, so it's great news for everybody in the MedTech sector. So the previous deadlines under the MDR have now been extended. So for Class 3 and implantable 2B devices, the extension is December 2027. And for 2B non-implantables, Class 2A, Class 1 sterile, measuring, reusable, etc., it's to December 2028. So an additional benefit of the extension of the MDR is the removal of the sell-off period, which applies to both medical devices and to IVDs. So this is great news in one sense, because it feels like it gives us breathing space, but the question is, in reality, how much breathing space does it really give us? So it's important to remember that the extension is really designed to help notify bodies, because the Commission was very much concerned about the risk of devices not being made available in the European market because of the compression in the timelines, and notified bodies had not moved far enough through the process of certifying devices. So one of the obvious opportunities that the extension presents is the ability for manufacturers to try and capture more clinical data, which has been one of the biggest problems that we've seen when we've been reviewing client documentation. So using post-market clinical follow-up, so PMCF as a route to gather clinical data, is well understood. So it's important to understand as manufacturers, what do you need to have in place to be able to utilize the extension period? And there are a number of criteria that the Commission have set. And they're not too dissimilar to Article 120 in the MDR. So you can not make significant changes to your devices if you're going to utilize the transition period. You have to have a QMS in place, so your quality management system has to be compliant to MDR expectations by May 2024. Now you'd think, since we had the deadline of May 2021 initially, that manufacturers would have their quality management system in place. But in some cases that hasn't happened. And so now it's really important to get those quality management systems in place, and remembering what that quality management system delivers. And primarily that's around the post-market surveillance area. So having your post-market surveillance documentation in good order is really critical. So that's your PSUR, so your periodic safety update report. It's your PMCF plans and your PMCF reports. And those are not small tasks to ensure that those documents are in good order. So the other thing to remember is to utilize this extension period, your device has to not present an unacceptable risk to patients and other users. So what does that mean to a manufacturer? Well, if you had a certificate in place and you didn't have any significant performance or safety issues, you're on pretty safe ground. But if a competent authority raises concerns for one of your devices that question whether it's suitably safe and effective, then you will not be able to use the transition period. So here at NAMSA, we have the advantage of having those ex-notified body personnel. So they've been on the other side of the fence. They were there reviewing your technical documentation, and now they're on this side of the fence helping you to prepare your technical documentation. And that's not just the nitty-gritty of writing the documentation, but it's the strategizing, it's the thinking about how to increase your chances of success. That might be with whether your claims are fully supported, whether your clinical data is appropriate, whether PMCF can fill some of those gaps in that data. So the use of those ex-notified body personnel gives you a bit more predictability on the outcome of your interactions with notified bodies, and hopefully reduces the risk and improves your chances of CE certification ultimately. So the key takeaways with the extension of the MDR are: now's not the time to take your foot off the gas. So the extension is there to allow notified bodies the chance to certify more devices and avoid devices being taken off the market in Europe. But that timeline of 2027 or 2028 isn't that far away, with notified bodies taking 12 to 18 months to approve devices on average. You can see that you need to get your submission in as soon as you can. And the other thing to consider is where you have gaps in clinical data, you can still gather that data through post-market clinical follow-up. So PMCF studies take a variety of forms, from surveys to much higher level studies. Now's the time to try and ensure that you gather that data, because anything that improves the quality of your clinical data will improve the chances of your overall success of certification.